Hi everyone, this is Jay Johnson with jart.com. In today's artistic adventure, I'm going to take you on a recent photo journey through my original photos from Shiloh, Tennessee, which was a couple days ago. It was a great day, and you'll see why as we go through the pictures. I'm also going to talk a little bit in this video about a new lens I'm trying out. I'm trying out the Nikon 200 to 500 lens, and all of these photos you'll see were shot with this lens. So I'll give a commentary of my thoughts on it at the end of the video. Okay, let's get started. When we first got to Shiloh, we always go by the Eagle's Nest, and if there's nothing there, we head on down to the river. There's two spots down at the river where we can see the eagles sometimes. The first spot we come to is the Indian Mounds. You have to park and walk back in there through the trees, and sometimes they like to sit right there and hang out. So we did that since it was a nice day. It wasn't too hot. We headed back to the Indian Mounds, and there was no eagle there, but we waited for a little bit. And this picture here was shot from the Indian Mounds. This is across the river of the tree line, and I was just basically taking a test shot to test out the lens and see how much reach I had. It's 500 millimeter at the long end, and that's where I was at when I shot this picture. And this picture will become important to in the creation of the art later. So let's continue on. I did see one of the eagles briefly while at the Indian Mounds, and the eagle went down to the river pull-off, which is where you can actually park and sit and watch the river. You have a very clear view. So since the eagle flew down that way, we went on down that way. And these are a couple shots of the eagle. I believe this was, let me see, this was Julia. And the reason I can tell that this is Julia, see, there's a missing, this is a far away shot, so I know it's blurry when I roll this up, but you see this, there's a missing feather right here. Julia right now has a missing feather on the edge of that one wing, her right wing. So this is Julia that we saw. I originally thought it was Hiram, but after looking at it closer, I determined this was Julia. Eagle was up really high, never did come down close. Flew over, but still very high. So we just watched her, and she went out of view. Let's see here. Okay, that's still Julia. I believe this is Hiram, who we saw a short time after, once again up high. Didn't come down low. And then I started waiting, and of course, anything that moves in the sky, I shoot it. Because you just never know when they're up that high. This ends up being a crow. So I have a couple of crow photos now if I want to do anything with that. But it was also a good test for me to see how quick this lens would obtain focus. Because it was really good light, it did very well. It's a little slower to focus. It's an f5.6 lens, so it's a little slower to focus than my Sigma 500 4.5 or my Nikon 300 2.8. So it does focus a little slower, but it did a good job on capturing this small bird up high in the sky and capturing him in flight. And then as we wait by the river pull-off, I found a turtle sitting down on the rocks just watching the river. And so I took his picture. Not sure if I'll do anything with that, but I thought it was kind of cute how he was sitting there just watching the river go by. The river was moving pretty good. So we'd been there maybe sitting at the pull-off maybe 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes maximum. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw a couple gulls flying by, and they were going really quickly. And anytime that happens, I take note, because they could just be flying from one location to the other, or they could be scared of something that's coming behind them that may have startled them. So I was just seeing how well the lens would do on capturing them, as they were all the way across the river up very high. It did a very good job. And then this is why they took off and flew as fast as they did, because right behind them then I spotted this. And once again, this is Julia. You see the missing wing feather right here. And she had those feet down. And I knew when she had those feet down, she was going fishing. So I paid close attention and stayed on her the best I could, hoping she would come fish over on our side. But no, they don't do that. She goes down by the shoreline on the other side. And so this is all the way on the other side of the river with a 500 millimeter, and which is not quite enough reach. But I photographed it anyway. And as you can see her going down here. Now, here's a fun thing right here. I'm going to roll this one up so you can see it. After she grabbed her fish, if you'll notice here on the shoreline, I would love to be right here where these guys are, these turtles. I made a post yesterday on Facebook, and I said I wish they had body cameras for turtles, because I'd put some on them. And I mean, they had front row seat to this whole thing, and I would have loved to have been in their position. But I just continued to watch her as she came up with her fish, and I originally thought when she was going this way, this was away from us. We were over this way. And I thought, oh boy, she's going back down the other way. And then I just watched her scoop around, head in that direction. And all of a sudden, she started to turn. And she turned right back toward us here with that fish. And then I thought, well, she's going to just fly across this way, probably go to the Indian Mounds, which is, you know, one of her favorite places. But then she turned again and she came across. This is right in front of us. And here she came with the fish. And there is a tree right there at the river pull-off with a branch that she really likes to sit on and eat her fish. And as she was coming this direction, I thought, she's coming to that branch. And I was so excited, because I thought, boy, am I going to get some good shots when she hits that branch. So this is her coming in. And this is right in front of us with that big old fish and her famous Julia expression. And then she saw me. And you can tell by the way her head's cocked, she's looking at me with the camera. And we were being real quiet. And I was standing back from the tree that I knew she would want to land in. And I was just waiting for her to land there. But she was kind of giving me what they call the eagle eye, I guess. And there's a close-up of that previous shot, so you can see the look she's giving me. There, check out that wingspan. That's really something. Big. Look at that. And as she got close to the tree where we were at, she veered off and went in behind these trees. These branches here, I mean, these leaves here that are blurred are on the tree where she should have landed if she'd have gone to the branch. But she decided to not go to the branch, and she veered off and went back into the park with her fish. And I don't know where she went. But I was so excited to have gotten those shots. Even though she didn't land on the branch right in front of us, I was excited that she came right by in flight with that fish. And the lens did a really good job of capturing those shots. So after she did that, then I saw a barge coming. So I took a couple pictures of a barge. And then I spotted another bird. And of course, like I said, I photograph everything. This is a red-tailed hawk. And the red-tailed hawks, they don't fish. They just fly across the river. So that's what he was doing. He was flying across the river from the side we were on, going to the opposite side. So pretty far away pictures of him as he flew by. And I'm keeping these because I do things, even though he's too small, I do things landscape-wise with these type of pictures. And then if you're on the river when I'm there, there's always a potential you might get your picture made. Just because I'm looking for something to photograph, I like to make sure that my lighting is right and my settings are right. So here was a couple here kayaking and or canoeing. I don't know my boats, so they were having fun. So we decided to leave and go to lunch since it had been quiet for a little while and I didn't see any more birds in flight. And we head up from the river, pull off, going toward the visitor center. And this is a one-way road. And as we get up to the next pull-off area where there's some cannons and some signs and such, I spot this. And this is just one of them. But the twin fawns were here. These are the twins from the cemetery, I believe. And at first I thought, at a first glance, I thought they were dogs. I thought, oh, there's a couple of dogs running down through here. Because this is midday, not the time you'd expect to see these guys out. But these two were out just munching away on the grass here. And I told my husband to stop the truck, and I jumped out, and I started walking very slowly toward them. And got closer. Got some great pictures of the two of them here. And I'll just scan through these real quick. But as I was doing this and getting closer so I could get some pictures of them, I was trying to remember to zoom out, since it is a 200 to 500 zoom lens, to make sure I didn't cut off their feet. But as I got closer, I still did it because I forget to zoom out. But that's okay. That's why I use textures and backgrounds, because I can bury those feet into a new background and you'll never know the difference. And this is a cute shot right here. There's grass hanging out of her mouth, and then she drops it. But they're so precious, and they're not. It's amazing to me how tiny they are, because to me, these white-tailed deer look really big when you see them across a field, out in a field. But when you get close to them, I mean, you could tell how small this fawn is when you look at this cannon wheel right here. And in comparison to the cannon wheel, she's just so tiny. And these two aren't very scared of people. They've been having their picture made since they were born over at the cemetery area, so they're used to us, and that's how come I can get so close to them. And as I'm taking these photos, since this is a one-way street and my husband is parked there waiting on me to take these photos, I finally turned around and I noticed there was a line of cars behind him. And I thought, oh boy, I better get moving. So if you're driving through Shiloh and you're stopped for no apparent reason, it's more than likely because me or one of the other photographers has jumped out of their vehicle to get some pictures of some of the beautiful wildlife that's there. This one got a little nervous and kind of halfway ran off, so I went back to this one. But I just think these two are the sweetest things. They've obviously been in some mud too. You can see the mud here on the legs. This one was the one that wasn't very scared. This one was a little more nervous, so it kind of ran off toward the trees. Just cute as could be. Did a few more poses for me. And this is at, oh gosh, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I believe. But they were right beside the road, just eating, not bothered by anything. Love their expressions when they're chewing. Looks like they're talking. And their eyelashes. I mean, look at this. Look at those eyelashes. They're so long. Just cute as could be. Once again, I forgot to zoom out. That's why there's no feet included in this picture. I'll get the hang of it eventually. It's been a while since I've used a zoom lens. Okay, so we went to right after this, we went to lunch and we came back. Parked back at the river, spotted a couple birds down far down the river. Didn't know if they were eagles or not. Spotted a couple walking on the beachy area together. So I took a couple pictures of that. And then this guy flew over, or girl. I'm not sure if this is a male or a female, but this is the eagle we think is Shiloh, is the name of the eagle, from 2013. In 2013, that was the first year we started going to see the eagles, and that was when they had their nest in an alternate location. And there were two chicks that year, and around the time they were getting ready to fledge, one of the chicks fell from the nest and died, and there was one surviving chick. And this is the one we think is the surviving chick. This eagle's been hanging around. It's been going over to that nest. It's been working on that nest. And it is, it looks to be about a 3.5 going on 4-year-old bird, which would put the timing about right. And because it's so familiar with that other nest, that's why we think that this one is the bird named Shiloh. But the birds were named Shy and Low. And then when the second bird died, we combined the names for the remaining bird and just called it Shiloh. And these are a little dark. I didn't have my exposure right. So to get these workable, they'll have to be brightened up. But what a pretty bird. The markings are really pretty on this bird. He or she flew over us, then went, of course, to the other side of the river to go fishing. And you see here, with the tree background is so busy, but there's the bird going down to go fishing. And I was hoping it would catch a fish and bring it over here. You can really see the colors good in this bird. Just a beautiful, beautiful bird. I hope it'll stick around. And then going down. See, and there was something, I think it was after something right here that went into the water right as it came down, because it did not end up getting a fish. It just flew right over and never even hit the water. And it scooped back up. I was hoping it'd come back by and try again, maybe fish closer to our side of the river instead of this far side. But it didn't. It just flew around a little bit, and then right after this, it made an abrupt turn and went the other direction. Then a little while later, I saw a gull flying, a couple of gulls, and so I immediately started paying close attention to the sky again, to see if there was any eagles in the area. This lens does a really good job with these small birds at that kind of distance. I'm impressed with it. And you wouldn't know this unless I tell you, but in the middle here is an osprey that came in. At first I thought it was an eagle, but then as it got up here above the tree line, I thought, no, that's an osprey, which is kind of unusual. There's a good shot of it. It's kind of unusual to see an osprey there at the river pull-off. That's not something we normally see there. Occasionally they'll pass over, but they're more prominent down at Pickwick Landing by the dam. That's where they like to hang out because they nest down there. But this one just passed over, and I was hoping it would go fishing, but it didn't. It was just flying around. Came one direction and turned around and went back the other direction. But there was a lot of activity at the river when we were there that day. Just different birds flying over, and there's some photographers I know that come and they'll be like, well, we've never gotten any shots down at the river. Well, if you just stop by the river for a few minutes, you're unless you're lucky, you're probably not going to get any shots. You really have to just sit there. And since the eagles aren't nesting right now, I thought, well, my goal is to get fishing shots. That's what I've been trying for all summer. We had some people that were camping out right across from the pull-off all summer long. They were loud and noisy, and so that kind of cut down on the amount of fishing the birds were doing in that area. And now those people are gone. It's gotten quiet again, so now we're seeing more activity there. But you really just have to sit there for a long amount of time. And so we've been doing that, and that's how we're seeing these birds at the river. Because when these things happen, when they go over or when they catch a fish, it's seconds, and it's over. And if you don't happen to be there at that right time, you're not going to see that kind of thing. We've been there, we went to lunch at 2, we got back around 3, and we've been down there since 3, and this was right before 5 o'clock. This one flew over. This is Hiram, and he flew over and on the other side of the river and stayed up high, just kept going higher. But this is Hiram. You can see he doesn't have the missing wing feather, and he also has a little strip of discoloration right down the middle of the tail right now. And so that's one way I can tell him, because somebody asked me, how do you know who's who? And when you watch them enough, like we do, you'll figure it out by their markings, their feathers, their facial features. So that's how right now, a real easy way to tell, though, is the missing wing feather. Julia has missing wing feather and Hiram doesn't. And it could be another adult eagle flying through, but with that discoloration down the middle of the tail that Hiram has there, right there down the middle, that makes it pretty obvious it's him, which I've been photographing him the last few weeks, and that's one thing I noticed in all the photographs of him. I could see that little strip of discoloration. But he just flew over and flew up very high, and he kept going higher and higher. So I said, well, let's just go through the park. It was getting around 5 o'clock. It was time to go through the park and see what else we could find. So as we're driving through the park, I spot a young buck beside one of the fences, and he decides to take off when I start to take his picture, and he jumps the fence. Not my ideal fence jumping shot. I would have preferred to be on the side over here and get out in a side view of this, but I was in the car and he was going away from me. But it's my first fence jumping shot I've ever gotten, and just watched him clear the fence. And then we drove down what we call the Deer Way, which has a lot of tall fields right now, so you really can't see anything in there. This is the road going out of that area back into the main part of the park, and I spotted these two, this doe and this young buck, by the road. And notice the buck is hiding behind the doe. I thought that was cute. And then this is the piece of art that I created with one of Julia's fishing pictures. And remember that first image I showed you right here? This image became the background for this piece of art. Called it Fall Fishing. I really wanted the fall colors in there, so I did some work and used some textures from dailytexture.com to change the tones to fall colors, and then brought her in with her fish to create a very nice piece of art with the eagle with the fish instead of the traditional blue sky background, which is fine if you're looking for a straight photograph, but for art to hang on the wall, I like something like this. This is what I prefer to see. And so I used that beginning picture here and changed the tones and added the textures and changed her tones a little bit to make her blend well with the background to create this piece of art. So that's about it for that adventure. I said I was going to talk about the Nikon 200 to 500 and my thoughts on that lens. As I said before, I think it did an exceptional job of acquiring the subject, even though the focus is slightly slower. The speed of the focus is slightly slower than my prime lenses. It is a good lens. I'm happy with it, so I'll probably keep it. There's a few things I don't like about it. Well, first of all, the weight is really good, which is why I got it. My prime lenses are so heavy, and now that it's getting cooler weather, I like to walk around instead of just sit. I like to walk around some and explore some, and carrying those prime lenses around is really hard on the shoulder and the neck and the back. And so this lens weighs 2 pounds less than one of my prime lenses that I use a lot. And believe it or not, that 2 pounds makes a lot of difference when carrying it. I put it on a black rapid strap so I can wear it over my shoulder. And it's easy to carry. It's heavy, but it's not as heavy as the primes, so it doesn't hurt my neck and shoulder and back like the primes do when I carry them around. So it is easy enough to carry around. Like I said, it is still somewhat heavy. I don't remember the exact weight on it, but it's not as heavy. It doesn't cause me any issues. And I was able to walk around quite a bit with it. The zoom feature I like because there's a lot of times in Shiloh we can get close to these animals and birds. And if I'm stuck at 500 millimeter, then I'm cutting off body parts like wing tips here when they fly over close and things like that. And by having the zoom, I'm able to zoom out some and get the whole animal or the whole bird, if I remember to zoom out. And that's the thing. I've been using a prime for so long that I've forgotten how to zoom. But I'm getting it. It's just going to take more practice. It is not a lens I would choose for low light. Because it's a f5.6 lens, it needs good light, especially with movement shots. And even in this picture here, you can see her wingtips are a little blurred because of the movement, but the center is clear, and that's what I was concerned with. The hood on the lens is kind of irritating because it comes unlocked very easy, and I've already had it fall off once, and I've had to pick it up and put it back on. So now, in addition to checking my strap and making sure it's connected tight so my camera doesn't fall off, and checking the latch on the strap to make sure it's tight, then I also now have to check the hood on this lens to make sure it's tight. And if I bang it around or move it in certain ways, the hood will come looser, will turn. It just takes a very slight little bitty turn to make it unlock. And the lock's not very strong, which that is the main gripe I have about the lens at this point, because I don't want to lose that hood. I understand a replacement's kind of expensive, and I haven't figured out yet how to make sure it's on a little tighter. I don't know if there's some product I can use. I didn't really want to put anything on it right now to make it, to possibly mess it up, since I am still evaluating the lens and deciding if I want to keep it. But at this point, I think I do want to keep it. It's exceptional with color and clarity, and the weight, like I said, is good. So I'm happy with it. I like having the zoom feature back. If I'm sitting somewhere and not planning on walking around, like during nesting season, or we're parked at the nest and we're just sitting there, I'll probably use the prime lens in that case, if that's all I'm looking for is eagle photos, because, well, I mean, sometimes even 500 millimeters too close at the nest. But as far as carrying it around, the Nikon 200 to 500 is much easier. I've been able to take a couple short walks with it without a problem, and I'm probably going to keep it. So you'll probably see more photos out of this lens. Anyway, I'm going to call this done. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing the original pictures and hearing a little bit about the experience. And I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.